Imagine a world where every skyscraper, smartphone, and social media platform vanishes in an instant. What remains? Nothing but a species of hairless apes with oversized brains, desperately trying to survive. Yet somehow, in just a few thousand heartbeats of cosmic time, we transformed from cave-dwelling nomads into builders of megacities and explorers of distant planets. This isn't just history, it's the most improbable, blood-soaked, revolutionary story ever told. The entire rise of human civilization. A young boy stands at the edge of a dark cave, his fingers trembling as they grip a piece of sharpened stone. The flickering firelight casts dancing shadows as he etches a figure onto the rock wall, half man, half beast, a creature existing between worlds. This child doesn't comprehend what a city is, or a king, or a god, but with that single desperate mark, he ignites a flame that will outlast him by tens of thousands of years. Human civilization begins not with grand monuments or complex machines, but with our primal need to remember, to communicate, to leave evidence that we existed. For 300,000 years, over 99% of our species' existence, we wandered. Small bands of hunter-gatherers followed herds, gathered plants, and huddled together for warmth through harsh winters. We were indistinguishable from nature, leaving almost no permanent mark on the landscape. Our ancestors weren't building empires, they were simply trying not to be eaten by predators or starve during harsh seasons. Do you ever wonder what thoughts filled their minds as they gazed at the same stars we see today? Did they feel the same fears, desires, and curiosities that drive us now? Then, approximately 12,000 years ago, a cosmic eyeblink, something revolutionary happened. In a fertile crescent that today spans parts of Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, people began to do something that would forever alter the trajectory of our species. They planted seeds. Think about how radical this concept was. Deliberately putting food into the ground instead of eating it, waiting months for it to grow, and permanently settling in one place to tend it. This wasn't just a new survival strategy. It was a complete reimagining of humanity's relationship with time, space, and the natural world. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Before humans built permanent homes or villages, they constructed something far more mysterious. Göbekli Tepe, a massive stone temple complex carved thousands of years before Stonehenge or the pyramids. This wasn't a practical structure, no one lived there. Hunter-gatherers traveled miles across harsh terrain, not to find food or shelter, but to gather at this sacred site. Why would people who hadn't yet mastered agriculture undertake such a monumental project? Were they driven by religious visions? Astronomical observations? The need to forge alliances between scattered groups? The answer shatters our assumptions. Perhaps religion and ritual created civilization, not the other way around. As wheat fields spread across Mesopotamia, the first true cities erupted from the desert floor. Uruk, a sprawling metropolis of mud brick buildings, crowded marketplaces, and towering ziggurats, housed over 50,000 souls by 3000 BCE. Its narrow streets buzzed with languages, trades, and conflicts, never before possible when humans lived in small bands. But the most revolutionary invention wasn't architectural, it was symbolic. Writing emerged not for poetry or storytelling, but for the mundane purpose of tracking grain surpluses and business transactions. Cuneiform tablets, pressed with wedge-shaped marks into wet clay, allowed humans to store more information than any individual could remember. This simple innovation, the ability to record and transmit knowledge across generations, unleashed civilization's explosive potential. But it also birthed something more insidious: unprecedented inequality. Knowledge became power, concentrated in the hands of scribes who could decode these mysterious symbols. Kings claimed divine authority through written proclamations. For the first time in human history, the gap between the powerful and the powerless could extend beyond physical strength to include control of information itself. Does this sound familiar in our age of big data and algorithmic control? In Egypt, civilization took a different, more centralized form. The predictable annual flooding of the Nile River created not just agricultural abundance, but a system of near-perfect control. Egyptian priests could forecast the floods to the day, giving pharaohs an almost supernatural authority. The Egyptian ruler wasn't merely a political leader, he was a living god, the divine bridge between heaven and earth. This belief system enabled the construction of monuments on a scale that still defies comprehension. The Great Pyramid of Giza, completed around 2560 BCE, contains 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons. Modern engineers still debate how it was built with such precision. Yet contrary to popular belief, these structures weren't built by slaves driven by whips, but by well-fed, organized laborers who believed they were participating in something sacred. What could possibly motivate thousands of people to dedicate their entire lives to building another man's tomb? The answer reveals something profound about human nature, our willingness to sacrifice for beliefs that transcend our individual existence. For Egyptians, life and death weren't opposites, but connected realms in an eternal journey. The pyramids weren't just tombs, but cosmic machines designed to transform a dead king into a living god. To help build such a structure was to touch eternity itself. But this profound belief system also served as a sophisticated mechanism of social control. The question that haunts all civilizations emerged: who truly benefits from what the masses believe? While Egypt and Mesopotamia have dominated our historical imagination, equally sophisticated civilizations were emerging elsewhere. In the Indus Valley, modern Pakistan and northwest India, a startlingly advanced urban society flourished without any of the expected hallmarks of ancient power. Cities like Mohenjo-daro featured sophisticated grid-patterned streets, complex drainage systems, and indoor plumbing more advanced than anything Europeans would enjoy for the next 3,000 years. Yet these cities contain few weapons, no grand palaces, no monuments to god-kings. Even more baffling, we cannot decipher their writing. Their beautiful seals, covered with intricate symbols and animals, remain silent witnesses to a civilization that somehow organized itself without apparent centralized authority. How could a civilization spanning over 500,000 square miles maintain such urban sophistication without the trappings of imperial power? And why did it vanish without clear evidence of invasion or catastrophe? The Indus Valley challenges our fundamental assumptions about what drives civilization. Perhaps hierarchy and domination aren't as inevitable as we've been taught. Then there was Athens, the crucible of democracy and Western philosophy. Yet this celebrated cradle of people power extended voting rights to less than 10% of its population. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from the political process that modern democracies claim as their inspiration. In this profound contradiction, philosophy flourished. Socrates questioned everything, even democracy itself, and was executed for his trouble. Plato, traumatized by his mentor's death, distrusted the masses and advocated rule by philosopher kings. Aristotle attempted to categorize all knowledge, believing that understanding came through careful observation and categorization. These conflicting philosophical traditions, questioning authority, distrusting popular opinion, and systematic investigation, would echo through millennia, far beyond the small city-state where speaking uncomfortable truths could result in a cup of hemlock. How many of our modern political and intellectual conflicts were first articulated in the agoras of Athens? While philosophers debated in Athens, Sparta created a society dedicated entirely to military prowess. Spartan boys were taken from their mothers at age 7 and subjected to brutal training. The weak were left to die. Individual expression was crushed. Yet this militaristic society produced citizens of extraordinary discipline and courage. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off a Persian army of hundreds of thousands, has become legend. But what price did they pay for their military excellence? A society so focused on war that it produced no art, literature, or philosophy of note. Only perfect soldiers. Empires rose and fell with dizzying speed. Persia created the first truly multicultural empire, spanning 3 continents. Alexander the Great conquered the known world before age 33, spreading Greek culture from Egypt to India, then died without a clear succession plan. Rome expanded from a small village to dominate the Mediterranean world. stitching together diverse peoples with roads, laws, and brutal efficiency. At its height, the Roman Empire encompassed over 70 million people, 1/5 of the world's population. Yet even Rome forgot how to maintain what it had built. By 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire collapsed not with a dramatic final battle, but through gradual erosion. Roads decayed, trade networks unraveled, technologies were forgotten. The fall of Rome teaches us civilization's most uncomfortable truth. Progress is not inevitable. Knowledge can be lost. Societies can forget what they once knew. In the vacuum left by Rome's fall, new myths and power structures emerged. The medieval period wasn't simply the Dark Ages as often portrayed. Islamic scholars preserved and expanded on Greek knowledge while Europe struggled. The Tang dynasty in China created a sophisticated urban culture while Europeans huddled in wooden forts. Mali's Emperor Mansa Musa made a pilgrimage to Mecca with so much gold that his generosity crashed the economy of every city he visited. Human ingenuity continued, but in fragmented, localized forms. Then came a test that would reshape humanity. In 1347, the Black Death erupted across Europe and Asia. The scale of this catastrophe is almost impossible to comprehend. In just 4 years, between 75 and 200 million people perished, up to 60% of Europe's population. Entire villages vanished overnight. In cities, corpses piled in streets faster than they could be buried. Some turned to frantic prayer, others blamed Jews, foreigners, or witchcraft. Flagellants whipped themselves bloody in public squares, believing the plague was divine punishment. But from this apocalyptic horror emerged unexpected changes. Labor, suddenly scarce, became valuable. Peasants demanded higher wages. The rigid feudal system began to crack. The old powers, nobility and church, weakened. And as the survivors emerged from the shadow of death, something remarkable happened. They began to question everything. The Renaissance wasn't just a rebirth of classical art, it represented a fundamental shift in perspective. Humans began looking not just upward for divine answers, but inward to human potential and outward to empirical observation. This new curiosity drove inventors to improve navigation tools originally developed by Arab and Chinese scholars. Ships ventured further from shore. In 1492, Columbus sailed west across the Atlantic. Not to prove the world was round, educated people already knew this, but seeking a faster route to Asia's riches. What he found instead would unleash the most dramatic collision of civilizations in human history.